They had the highest home loan interest rate in the country and no one noticed. Why? Because we gave away a free vacation instead. That's John Dwyer. And if you ever thought incentive marketing was just about coupons and gimmicks, buckle up. In today's episode of The Mike Method, we're diving into the wild world of incentive-based marketing with John Dwyer, aka JD, the mastermind behind campaigns that have added billions in revenue, broken home loan records, and convinced Jerry Seinfeld to come out of retirement to shill for a cheeky Aussie bank. John isn't your average guy. He's the founder of the Institute of Wow, a direct response legend whose clients list reads like a business hall of fame. Disney, KFC, 7-Eleven, News Corp, Woolworths, and BP. But what sets him apart is his uncanny ability to have you take your eyes off the prize and redirect them towards a Happy Meal style incentive that you just can't resist. In this episode, JD unpacks how to craft high converting offers using psychology, storytelling, and what he calls the artificial wow factors. You'll hear how he turned beer into currency, sold out turf farms, and exploded a small bank's growth with free vacations, and even leveraged $1 million insured prizes from Lloyd's of London for just $25,000. We'll also explore what most marketers get dead wrong about branding, why almost every loyalty program sucks, and how B2B companies can ethically sidestep gift-giving policies with a simple conference twist. This is one of the most creative, tactical, and laugh out loud episodes we've done, and it might just change the way you think about marketing forever. Let's dive in. John, I really appreciate you joining me from the Gold Coast of Australia to have this conversation today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Mike.
So one of the things that I am fascinated to hear more about, and I'd love to kind of use this as a launching off point, is for you to share with our audience, what is the concept of incentive-based marketing and direct response marketing? Like, what's your definition of those two terms?
Yeah, and look, for the purpose, Mike, of your audience, which I know are people in the corporate sector, a lot of that audience would look upon direct response marketing as the morning infomercial of the George Foreman barbecue.
Right.
That's not the way to look at it.
Okay.
That hurry while stocks last, and we've only got 3 left, and if you buy today, we'll give you 3 for 1, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the corny direct response marketing that we have seen on infomercials on television for 1,000 years. And look, it works. But by the same token, when you are running a business that might be doing $100 million, then you are very conscious of your brand. And so you've got to be very conscious of the way you conduct direct response. But direct response marketing is really problem solution marketing.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we all buy stuff because it either satisfies us from a lifestyle point of view, or it fixes a problem. And the 5 components to direct response marketing is: number 1, highlight their problem. If, for example, are you overweight? Number 2, and aggravate that problem. Do you know that summer's just around the corner? Do you want to look good in a swimsuit? Number 3, provide them with a solution. Come on my dietary program and you'll look like a supermodel within a month. Number 4, and that is provide proof. And that, generally speaking, is testimonials or before and afters. And then number 5, a strong CTA. And the CTA stands for call to action. And a lot of people get the problem solution part right, but they fail when it comes to the CTA. The call to action is very, very, boring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really a very important thing, because if you were to use McDonald's as an example, their call to action is very, very simple: buy a Happy Meal, get a toy.
Right. And I think actually you had a campaign that you did where and maybe you can tell the story, but where it was get a loan for your home and actually get a vacation attached to that. And I've never heard of anything like that as an incentive.
Well, thank you, Mike, because that gives me a fantastic intro to name drop. I just dropped Jerry Seinfeld's name on the floor. Let me just pick that back up here. Yeah, and no, good intro, because that particular campaign involved Jerry Seinfeld, and it's a bank in Australia that was, it's a building society, and building societies tend to attract a working class audience, whereas the big banks like the Bank of America and the Wells Fargo, banks like that tend to attract people in suits, whereas a credit union and a building society tends to attract an electrician or plumber or builder. Okay. And so therefore, if you're dealing with a working class audience, then direct response, it can be rocket fuel. So what happened is that I became a consultant for this bank, and they were trying to take on the big banks, the sort of Wells Fargo bank, on interest rates. And I said, that would be like a little corner store taking on Costco on price.
Good luck, right?
Yeah, and I was in the boardroom with all of these bankers, and of course I was the only one wearing a bright tie because I'm from advertising, and they're all in their banking suits. And I said, "You people are on drugs. Do you really think that you're going to beat the big banks on interest rate? If you are 6.22%, they're going to be 6.1% by within 5 minutes." I said, "What you need to do is recognise A, you're a challenger brand, so you're not the Coca-Cola of your industry, and B, that you've got to distinguish yourself by doing something different." Bit like what Richard Branson does with all of his brands. Okay, basically he's unusual. So I was doing some infomercials on TV at the time for a travel discount company, and I introduced them and said, "Look, how about we do this? Why don't we start from next month, get a home loan, and we get a free vacation, or they get a free vacation?" And they said, "Well, who's going to pay for that?" I said, "Well, at the moment, you've got a 1% honeymoon rate, like every bank does. When you get a home loan, they give you a 1% break for that first year. Why don't we give that to the travel company, which means it's cost neutral? They'll give you an excellent deal on the vacations." And that's what happened. So we came on social media and TV, and we basically said, "Get a home loan or swap your home loan for the nasty banks, come across to us and we'll give you a free vacation." We're talking within the first few years an extra 15 billion, not million, $1 billion in home loans. And this complete moron, this idiot who you're talking to, Mike, charged a consultancy fee instead of a percentage.
Right.
If I charged a percentage, I wouldn't have gone to Hawaii. I think I would have bought Hawaii. I was a complete idiot. But about 3.5 years into it, it was so successful. It was mind-boggling. They had a call center that had 15 ladies in it answering the phone before this started. It grew to 50 within like 3 months. And it was just a money tree. So therefore, we'd come on TV and say, "Why would you go with the big banks when they treat you like a number, and they don't give you good customer service, and they charge you fees and blah blah blah?" Come across to the Greater Building Society, and you can imagine heavenly music and white
Yeah.
doves and beaches
Yeah.
and palm trees. You get a free vacation. It was a pretty compelling Happy Meal toy. And then about 3.5 years in, I got Seinfeld to do their ads, and I won't bore you with the details. He was very difficult to get to, but nonetheless, I got to him eventually, and he agreed to sign a 3-year deal whereby Jerry Seinfeld came on TV and social media down under and said, "Swap your home loan and get a free vacation." Well, of course, what was already successful just went through the stratosphere.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, the level of credibility that he would bring to what is already a successful campaign is significant.
And you know what he said? He said to me, "My name's John Dwyer, but I get the JD." And I was 3 years ago backwards and forwards to New York. And when you're dealing with someone at that level, you can imagine it was a TV production crew of 80. I was used to making TV commercials with, the guy with the boom and the guy with
Yeah.
the camera and, 2 or 3
That's it.
others. We're talking 80 staff, a green screen the size of an IMAX theatre. I mean, everything with him is big, of course. And I was having a coffee with him, and he said to me, "Listen, we're of a similar nature." And I said, "Oh, that's a nice compliment for me. What do you mean by that? Am I that funny?" He said, "No, you're not funny." He said, "But the thing is," he said, "you're into this direct response stuff. That's what I do." And I
Right.
thought, "Yeah, you're right. You're right."
That's so true. That's a wonderful story, and I think it underscores too this concept. So maybe connect back the call to action with how incentive based marketing and direct response based marketing tie together. Is that the place when you really, is it in the call to action space that you want to have those direct response and incentives built in?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. That's what I always wanted to do on these podcasts. If you're a guest, you know how like when you see the Tonight Shows and there's a question that they ask Mike Douglas or something like that, and he goes, "Oh, that's a great question." I just want to screw that up and go, "Oh, that's a stupid question."
Yeah.
I'm not answering that one. No, that is a good question because they do link, and so therefore let's understand that the Doctor Evil part of me is helping businesses take their prospects' eyes off the price. So the whole idea of this is to take the Greater Building Society throughout the Seinfeld get a home loan, get a free holiday offer. He was in it for 3 years, but it ran for quite a number of years over that. They were the highest home loan interest rate in the world. No one ever saw it. Yeah, not once in that. It was 9 or 10 years we ran the campaign, and me as a consultant, so I would visit the client, once every
Yeah.
week, once every 10 days. But for that period of time, not once did they ever advertise an interest rate. Can you imagine a bank not advertising an interest rate for 10 years?
Wild.
Yeah. And
Wild.
and they were the highest home loan interest rate in the world, but no one saw it because we took their eyes off the price. We gave a Happy Meal toy to them, which distracted them from the price.
Right.
So, that's why if I was smart, and I'm not, I'm stupid, but I would have charged a percentage of everything because they had a much bigger percentage of profit than most of the other banks because we took their eyes off the price.
I can't fathom a bank marketing a mortgage or a home loan and not stating an interest rate like that.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
incredible.
Yeah. No, it's right.
And so when you
And,
think,
and, and to answer your question though, Mike, the
yeah,
thing
yeah,
is, if you're going to take their eyes off the price, then you have to have some David Copperfield skills. You've got to magically get them to just not look at the price. And of course,
yeah,
the opposite. I mean, I'm telling you, 97% of all businesses, and this includes corporates, have never ever had an incentive. Or if they do have an incentive, it's basically more of their product. So if you go to a sushi train here in Australia and you
sure,
have some sushi, they will
yeah,
give you points, and when you get those points, you can cash the points in for guess what? More
more
sushi.
sushi.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, I hate to sound like Seinfeld, but who needs more sushi? I mean,
yeah,
seriously. Whereas if they said cash your points in for a movie pass,
yeah,
then that would be a completely different thing. And so, therefore, what you need to do, whether you're a corporate or whether you're a small business, is recognise that direct response's aim, the objective of direct response, is not just to sell stuff, but of course, sell stuff because you've taken their eyes off the price, which means that you can have better margin. And what happens is that most businesses don't have a lot of creativity within their business, and so therefore I say, look, if you don't have an organic wow factor, so for example, these guys, iPhone, they don't need my help. They've got an
yeah,
organic wow factor.
for
My,
sure.
my business is called the Institute of Wow, so therefore everything that I stand for is well, where's the wow in that? Where's the wow in this?
Yeah,
And my wife hates me for that because, of course, there's no off switch. You just go to a cafe and you go, oh, for God's sake, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do
yeah,
that? Look at the cobweb in the corner. But these guys don't need my help because, there is only one iPhone. I know there's
yeah,
competitors, but there's only one iPhone. So they've
yeah,
got an organic wow factor. If you
right.
don't have that, then what you need, of course, is a artificial wow factor. And the artificial wow factor normally is an incentive like a Happy Meal toy.
You know what's fascinating when you think about these incentives? I think about partner programs. So I think there's so many brands that I buy things from, and they say, "Oh, because you're affiliated with us, or you get 10% off at this store and 20% off at this store and everything else." And I find those completely useless because one, I have to remember the 20 places they've got a partnership deal with that I'm supposed to get some sort of discount on, and then remember to bring that up when I'm purchasing from one of those places. I'm never going to do that, right? If it's built onto my Visa, then I'll just get the incentive and I don't have to actually think about it. But if I actually have to remember, so I look at those things, that's of zero value to me.
Yep.
And I hear you, if the incentive is more of the thing that I already bought, then that's just more of something I'm already getting. I love this concept that you bring up of, well, what's something else that same person would value, that we could include that they really want, and get them to focus on that. The bank, it's interesting here in Canada, we've got a large bank called the Royal Bank of Canada. And the Royal Bank has, what they've done is they say, if you open a checking account, we will give you an iPad. They don't tell you what the fees are for opening that checking account. They don't tell you what the ongoing fees are. They don't tell you what the check rating fees are. They don't talk about any of that. Like, just open an account with us and we'll give you an iPad. And I think that's a
Yep.
very, like, a similar type incentive to the one that you've been referring to. Is that a good example of an incentive type thing?
It's an excellent example. And Amazon are not stupid. They have a Prime membership club. And if you upgrade to the Prime membership club, you get free shipping and free
Yeah.
music and free movies and all that. It really is all about taking their eyes off that price. And the crazy part about it is that, not our statistics show that, and ChatGPT backs me up, that 97% of businesses, corporate or small, have never, ever used an incentive, which is mind-numbing. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm a baby boomer, so I grew up with the Flintstones toys in the Kellogg's cornflakes, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching or listening to this would have grown up in the era that I did, whereby you had to get Kellogg's because that was where the toy was.
Absolutely.
And it's so simple. It's really bizarre that a lot of people don't use it because it is really so simple. This is not a corporate client, but I do a lot of seminars and conventions and stuff like that. So I'm up and doing my song and dance show, and the guy comes up to me at the end and joins my coaching program, and he owns a turf farm. Now, he's not a corporate, but he was doing, $9 million turnover, which is not bad for a small business. And so he sells turf, as in grass, for people's backyards. And I said, he said, can I have some of that pixie dust? I said, okay, well, who's your target audience? And he said, oh, well, not mum and dads, because they only buy one, front yard or one backyard's worth of grass. He said, I've got miles and miles of turf. He said, I've got to get rid of it so I can replant for the next season. And I found out that his target audience were landscapers. And I said, okay, well, 99% of them are men. What do men like? And he said, I don't know, you tell me. And he'd seen all my Seinfeld stuff on TV. He said, well, what do you think? I said, well, they like beer. I mean, men are interested in beer. That's it. So as silly as this sounds, we just rented a list of landscapers in that particular city, and we sent out snail mail and digital, because landscapers are not known for their technical digital skills.
Yeah.
And basically said, look, for every 500 square metres of grass, you get a free carton of Crown Lager beer. Now, Crown Lager beer in Australia is the Versace beer. It's the upmarket beer, right? And so that's what we did. It cost him a lousy $50 for a carton of 24 bottles of this upmarket beer. He rings me up 5 days after we sent out the emails and the letters, and said to me, JD, we have a problem. And it was like the Houston, we have a problem. I said, yeah, what's the problem? He said, we've just sold 3 miles worth of grass. We've got no more grass. And he said, I'm sourcing my turf from other competitive turf farms just to keep up with the demand for the beer. And then he said to me, there was one guy who was a complete pain in the backside that was the worst client I've ever had over the last 5 years. He would always, if I was $6 a square metre, he could get it down the road for $5.50, and then I'd go $5.40. It'd be $5. And he said he rang me up and said, I want 18 homes worth of grass. I don't care when the grass gets here. I've got a party on Friday night. I need the beer now.
This concept, I love this concept that you coined of take their eye off the prize, because I just think it's such a brilliant way of describing, in such a simple way, describing what the action is. I sit on the board of a company here in Canada. It's quite a large organization, and they have an incentive trip that you earn points for. So of course, the more, and they've got competitors that their clients could be buying from. But of course, if they do that and they spread their purchases out, then they aren't going to earn enough incentive points to be able to go on this incentive trip. And every year it's like Hawaii and Mexico and, pretty nice Caribbean, like nice places that these incentive trips are on. And so it's really important for people to earn the points, but you can only earn them through the company versus, if you're earning points on your visa, well, you can spend those on anything. Right. And so obviously that doesn't benefit. There's no free prize there for the merchants that I'm spending my visa on. But if they're saying, oh, you're going to add up to these things. So, I wonder, is this still the same concept at a retail level in D2C and the consumer side, where it's like, hey, if you spend $200, you can get free shipping. If you spend $300, you can get like a free extra product or something like that. Is that the same type of an incentive?
Yeah, look, most of the clients that we have, and ours it's a mixture between corporates and smaller businesses. I mean, I was the national marketing guy for Woolworths in Australia back 1,000 years ago when I was younger. And Woolworths is a major supermarket chain here in Australia. It's not the same Woolworths as in America. And so therefore, we ran a lot of promotions very similar to Tesco, which is the supermarket chain in the UK, whereby every time you spent $10, back in those days, you got a stamp and you licked the stamp and put it on your saver sheet. And when you saved up 10 stamps, you got cookware and glassware for special deals, right? And that probably was my baptism in seeing just how powerful this, what we call continuity programs are, because there's a guy called Rupert Murdoch who has a pretty big business called Fox. And in Australia, basically, I used to look after all the scratch bingo games for his newspapers. And so what we would do, of course, is that we would print bingo numbers in the paper each day. On the first day, you would get a scratch bingo card that would drop out of the paper, but then you had to buy the paper every day to actually know the numbers to scratch out. And we made sure that everyone in Australia had 3 of the 4 numbers that they needed to get a $100,000 prize for. They had by Wednesday. There was a magazine here in Australia called the New Idea magazine. So it's a women's magazine that used to have, not used to. It still does have the movie stars on the front cover, but it doesn't have the volume sales that it used to.
Yeah.
And, we were asked to lift their circulation. So I said, okay, well, let's give away a $100,000 prize. And what we did then is that the magazine came out with a bingo card, and basically, people actually then had to continue to buy the magazine regularly to find out the numbers to scratch out. It's all about, the the continuity stuff is all about keeping customers sticky. So what happened is when the Seinfeld thing sort of hit, it was pretty hard to keep the Greater Building Society thing a secret because you've got a big star like that doing it. I got contacted by an overseas company and they said to me, listen, you look like you've got half a clue when it comes to marketing. We've got access to unsold hotel rooms around the world. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, these hotels are all 4-star and they're in America and Canada and Australia and right throughout Europe. And essentially, they're happy to give up their room for free because they hope that whoever stays there as a freebie will spend money on food and beverage. That's where the real money is. And so, therefore, for the last 5 years, we've been giving smaller businesses this. And basically, it's a vacation that's worth $1,000.
Okay.
So we just give the businesses what we just say to them, listen, we've got $1,000 3 to 7 night vacation. We're talking Las Vegas and we're talking Vancouver. We're talking, Grand Canyon, Orlando, all the sexy spots. So they get something that's worth $1,000, but we give it to them for $50. Okay, we've still got margin. We've got margin in that. Keep in mind the cost of goods for this is zero. Okay, it's not like you buy a TV from China and you got $200. You got to settle the foot.
Yeah.
And what we're finding there, the interesting thing is that even when they smaller business, and of course smaller businesses don't have a lot of marketing expertise, but even when they don't market it as well as they could, the fact that it is a universally appealing incentive, in other words, a 20-year-old wants a holiday and so does an 80-year-old.
Right.
It's very hard for it to fail. So they say, buy my refrigerator and I'll give you a free 3-night vacation. Use my lawn mowing service and I will give you a 3-night vacation. And the reason I bring that story up is that it's a message to market match game. So therefore, if I was to walk into a menswear shop and I bought a jacket and they gave me a skateboard, I would say, you've missed your mark.
There's a mismatch there.
I would say that, would you have a walking frame?
Right. But I think, if I was to think about an example, I think, for the menswear store, the first one that comes to mind for me is how sticky barber shops are. Once you find a barber, most men are like, I don't want to switch my barber. Like if my barber tells me that she's going on vacation, I'm like, cool, I'll wait for you to get back. She's like, well, one of my other peers, no, I'm not interested in talking to somebody else. I'll wait till you get back. So, I think I've been a customer of the same barber for 12 years now. And, I'm not moving away from Chloe, full stop. But interestingly, if a men's store said to me, hey, you just bought a blazer with us, your haircut's on us.
Yep.
Then I would go, I would say, okay, great. I'm going to go get my free haircut. But once that person cuts my hair once, I'm probably never going to shift. So for the barber, it's great because they know they have me as a long-term client and it's brand specific because I want to look good. So obviously I'm in a men's store buying a blazer. So a haircut would, tie in well with that. Or maybe it's a shave or I don't know, something, but both parties are actually benefiting from it. But, on the surface of it, it wouldn't seem like a natural fit between those two brands. But that's just what came to mind as you shared that example.
No, it is. It's got to be a message to market match. And there's so many people get that wrong. It's just really, really crazy. I mean, McDonald's nailed it. They know that pester power kicks in. Mummy, daddy, I want to have a toy. And Kellogg's have, died out on that forever. Even the local cafe. The crazy thing with this is that not many people run a continuity program. And if you're selling swimming pools or tennis courts, then, not too many people are going to buy two.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
It's funny, the hairdress thing. I tell a story when I'm doing the marketing thing on stage with seminars. We lived in a little country town at one stage. It was sort of like Mayberry with the Andy Griffith Show. Okay, it was a little country town. My wife and myself grew up in Sydney, and we had 6 kids, and we moved to this little country town about 2 hours north of Sydney. And the lady in town had a hairdressing salon forever. She'd never had any competition at all. It was the one hairdressing salon, the one butcher, the one baker, and so on. Right. And Gail comes home from picking the kids up from school this day. So this was some time ago, and she said, Kimberly wants to know, is there any chance you can help her out? There's a new hair salon that's opened across the road that's taken all of her men. And I said, oh, okay, right. And she said, look, they make most of their money on women, but she said the men's haircuts she had for $50, and the shop across the road, who's just opened, has got a special deal, $10 haircuts. Men being men, basically they'll get their hair cut at a butcher. They don't care. So therefore, all the men have gone across the road. And the problem with that is they might influence the women who they make more money out of to follow them. And I said, "Oh, thanks, Gail. I've got another free job here. Terrific, righto." And so leave it with me. I was just hoping Gail would not go to the tuck shop meetings all the time and meet these people. And so anyway, I said, "Leave it with me." So anyway, about 2 days later, we came up with a campaign. And this will show you it doesn't always have to be an incentive, but nonetheless, we came up with a campaign. And she got all of the men back within a week because we just put a sandwich. Keep in mind, she's directly opposite the hair salon that's giving $10 haircuts for men. We just put a sandwich board outside hers, and the sandwich board said, "We fix $10 haircuts." So it doesn't always have to be an incentive. Sometimes you've just got to be a bit clever the way you come up with the headline.
I was going to say that's cheeky and that's clever. So I'm curious for people that are listening to that are in sort of larger businesses and maybe they're service-based businesses that help to support B2B clients, right? So they're not selling direct to a consumer. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how, from a B2B perspective, larger organizations can think about how to use incentives.
Yep. B2B is a challenge because there's things called corporate guidelines and all of that these days. So, and you can't even give them a ticket to the football or to the baseball match these days, as you know.
Yeah.
And so really the best way to do that is what radio stations have been doing for 1,000 years, and they still do it. And I've had a lot of big radio stations as clients, not just here, but even in America. And what the radio stations do is that they have that travel incentive that you spoke of before, but of course they turned it into a conference. So therefore, basically, yeah. So all the radio stations, we would say to, the big clients, and there's always a decision maker or a committee of decision makers, we'd say, listen, if you buy, a $100,000 package over the month of whatever, then you're entitled to come with another person from your business to a training seminar or convention that we're having in Hawaii. That's exactly what you said before.
So smart.
And so what happens then? Of course, they come to the to the conference, and then you upsell them to some other shit as well. So
right.
Essentially, I mean, you just turn what would be the typical consumer Happy Meal toy into a corporate one,
right?
And you make sure you tick all the boxes so that people know it's not cash in a brown paper bag outside the company.
That's so smart. That's such a great reframe to take something that would be called an incentive trip and turn it into a conference, which everyone's allowed to do.
Yep.
And obviously is thought of as developmental for the person that's being sent, right? They're going to learn to be better at the space, right? As a result of going to the conference. So that's great. I love these.
I spoke at one.
Great examples.
You'd be familiar with Gary V, are you?
Yeah, of course. Vaynerchuk. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he came out to Australia a few years ago, and it was exactly that. It was a buddy of mine has a real estate business, and it's a real estate training business. So they train real estate agents how to sell real estate. And Gary V was on. I was on before him, thankfully, because you don't want to be on after him.
No.
And so they had 4 or 5 speakers, and all of the real estate agents there, and there was about 500 of them, had invested in this training program. So it was a B2B training program. And they got a ticket to basically come to this 2-day event, of which the chocolate chip cookie, the star of the event, of course, was Gary V. So again, it's just basically the same principle, but you just make sure that the B2B gift is going to mirror the message to market match. Make sure that it's going to be. Here on the Gold Coast, we have a resort here called the Versace Hotel, and as you would expect, it's a 6-starer. And so if you've got a BMW client, then that's where you would hold your conventions. You wouldn't hold them at the Scout Hall.
Right. I love these. You have such great examples. I'm curious to talk about some mismatches that you've seen. Like where organizations have come up with, or maybe it's B2C, have come up with an incentive campaign that's just absolutely bombed, like just did not work because they did the mismatch that you were talking about. Like, what are some of the famous ones that you've seen out there? Obviously, you weren't involved in them, but the ones you've seen other. And
I keep on telling my wife I've never made a mistake, so therefore it could not be me. And then my dad joke is that the only mistake I made was in 1992, and the mistake I made was that I thought I had made a mistake. And the other one that goes down with my wife like a lead balloon, she hates it. If she happens to be in the conference room and I'm doing one of my things, I'll BS and say, "Look, it's our wedding anniversary today," and of course it's not. Everyone claps and so forth. I said, "Yes, no, we've actually been happily married for 30 years," and they all clap. And I say, yeah, we've been married for 35 years, but happily married for 30 of them. You can see she wants to leave the room.
Of course, yeah.
And the other thing she hates is that when I pitch my marketing consultancy at the end of it, I say, look, if anybody would be interested in being part of this, then go to the back of the room and we'll have smoke coming out your credit card pretty quickly. But be aware, we're like Disneyland. We have a height restriction. We don't take on any small people because they're like carnies. They just scare me. And of course, they've heard this sarcasm for 3 hours, so it's not a surprise.
Right.
And then I say we don't take on any women clients who are named Beryl or Esme, because have you ever met an interesting Beryl or an interesting Esme? And this guy comes up to me at the end and he said, JD, my wife's not here, but I've just rung her and we want to join the program, but we have an issue. I said, what's that? He said, we've got a problem. I said, everyone's got a problem. What's your problem? He says, my wife's only 5'7". And I said, well, I can't make a decision on that. I have to go to a committee meeting, seriously, because that's not my... And he said, no, he said, it's worse. Her name is Esme. Yeah, look, I guess I was killing time because I was trying to think of something that stood out. And look, there would be dozens of them. I was just trying to think on the spot something that was... Normally, it's where the actual gift or the reward or whatever you want to call it, the incentive, has nothing at all to do with the audience. And although I can't pull out of my hat a real example, but there's a lot of silly examples out there whereby they provide an incentive to get something. And keep in mind, it's not to win something, it's to get something for free that makes absolutely no sense. So, for example, it would be, look, it'd be no good giving away a free dietary program to gym enthusiasts. That would make no sense.
Right.
I'll tell you one thing that I think anyone listening or watching this would be interested in, regardless of whether they're corporate or not, is that because I've come from a contest background, so I've done all the Murdoch scratch bingos and the Monopoly style stuff at McDonald's and KFC and all of that fast food stuff we've done 4 million times over. We're pretty good friends with Lloyd's of London, so I can get $1 million for $22,000. Okay, so when people are doing contests and they are giving away a motor car, I say to them, you're on drugs. But do you really think that that's going to be an incentive in the day and age whereby Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is on TV? Those days are gone. You cannot give away a month's worth of groceries and think people are going to get hard nipples. It will not happen, right? Yeah. And so therefore, if you're going to give something away in a contest, make sure you either do two things. Number one, you buy, you get, which is McDonald's, Happy Meal. Okay, buy the Happy Meal, get a toy. Buy 2 Happy Meals, get 2 toys. Or if you're going to give something away, it's got to be 100,000, 500,000, $1 million. And I know that you won't necessarily have that in your budget, but you can get insured prizes from Lloyd's of London and other insurance companies. $1 million will set you back, let's say 25K. And what happens there is that you have the Elvis found headline, buy my product or service, and you're in the chance to win $1 million. And then when you have the preliminary draw, you pull someone out, and that person gets to choose one from 200 envelopes on a boardroom table. And inside one of those envelopes is $1 million, and inside the other 199. So all of those shows on TV, Deal or No Deal, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the TV networks don't give that money away. That's given away by Lloyd's of London. Right. And their premium is based on the difficulty of the question. So if they lower the difficulty of the questions, their premium goes up.
Got it.
And so in our instance, we can give people $1 million to give away. It'll cost them something like 25K. We package it all up to where we make our money, so we put all the pixie dust to it. And that's when you can really get some traction. If you say, buy my product or use my service and you're in the draw to win $1 million, shut the gate. You've got a queue at the door. You've got a lineup.
That is brilliant. I had no idea that that's how that worked, that Lloyd's of London actually insured prizes for these. But, now that I think about it from an actuarial perspective, like, it's brilliant, right? Like, if you've got a 1 in 200 chance, you have to win the chance to look at one of these 1 in 200, and then you have a 1 in 200 chance of actually getting the right envelope. So, from their perspective, a $25,000 makes sense because the odds are so unlikely, right? It's that they're actually.
But Mike, the thing is, and I always stir the daylights out of my broker because I ring him and say, it went off, and he goes, what? That's the second one this month that's gone. I said, no, I'm only joking. That's 1 point to me. I'll give you an idea of just how powerful that is. We had a resort in Fiji. So Fiji island resort contacted me and they said, listen, we've got a resort that's 25 years old and all the new Hiltons and the Sheratons have opened up, half an hour away from us and everyone's going there. And I said, right, okay, well, you might be time for refurbishment of your resort. I'd seen it, and so therefore I realised it was in need of a coat of paint. And he said, not at the moment. He said, have you got, excuse the language, but he said, have you got any of that wow factor shit available?
Yeah.
Given that we're called the Institute of Wow, right? And I said, yeah, okay. So I said, who's your audience? Well, classic B2B. You'd think it's B2C, but B2B, because just like the West Coast of America, the travel agents normally are the people who tell you to go to Hawaii. In this instance, on the east coast of Australia, if you went to a travel agent and said, I want an island holiday, they'll say, go to Fiji, right? Because
Right.
it's a 2.5 hour
Yeah,
trip.
it's close. Yeah.
And so anyway, I said, okay, well, therefore we need to excite the travel agents. And so why don't we do $1 million draw where basically we say to the travel agent, he's running at 31% occupancy at this moment. And yeah, not good. And I said to him, okay, so we sent out a notification to all the travel agents on the east coast of Australia. From now on, for every night you book someone into the Hideaway Resort, that's what it was called, you get a ticket into the $1 million draw. Now, what does a travel agent care? A travel agent doesn't care where they put you. And so therefore, if your husband and wife went into a travel agent throughout that promotional period in Australia and said, look, I'm thinking about going to Fiji, we thought maybe the Hilton, they go, no, it's got rabies. Okay, you don't want to go to the Hilton. They go, oh, well, we go to the Sheraton, Ebola. It's got Ebola at the Sheraton. You don't want to go there. Well, where should we go? You've got to go to the Hideaway Resort. They went from 31% to a 100% occupancy within a week and stayed there for 3 months. Not one room vacant. Because what we did, if you booked direct, we ran another $1 million process. So therefore, if you didn't go through a travel agent, but you booked direct, then for every night, so keep in mind it's continuity, for every night that you stayed there, you got a ticket into the $1 million draw. And I thought to myself, look, this is Christmas. This client will be around forever. And because they were paying a reasonable amount of money. And at the end of it, they said to me, what do we do next? And so anyway, I said, well, how about we do dinner with Tom Cruise? And you can insure against that. So I contacted Tom Cruise's people. And so therefore the deal was, and I said, how much do you charge for lunch? And they came back and said $250,000 for lunch. I said, okay, well, so we insure against that. And then we'll put $750 on top of that. So we just took out the $1 million insurance again and put the campaign together. It was ready to run here in Australia. Now, most of the travel agents on the East Coast are female. It's a 70-30 split female. Who doesn't want to have dinner with Tom Cruise,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was book for every night you book someone into this resort from here till the next 3 months, you're in the chance to win dinner with Tom Cruise. You go for your private jet from Australia to Los Angeles. You stay at the Beverly Hilton and you have dinner with Tom Cruise, right? So it was all packed. Just about to press the send button on it. And guess what? He sold the resort. It was all about him building up the occupancy to sell the resort.
Well, that is such a follow-up campaign though. Like it's what I love about these examples that you're giving, John, is they sound not otherworldly, but they sound so huge that, I think everybody can relate to a McDonald's prize or a Kinder Surprise chocolate and open up and get a little prize. Like everyone can relate to that example, but you're giving examples where the prize itself is so significant. And it's taking people's eyes off of what they're doing because they're so focused on driving towards what is a very, very significant prize. And yet I had no idea about the entire insurance industry that was built into the background to help to support these prizes actually being available to have.
Yeah. No, it's again, it all comes back down to that message to market match. And the reason that cash and having done all the Murdoch newspapers and so forth, I'm very familiar that cash is king.
Yeah.
Travel comes second.
Yeah.
And everything is a long way third.
Yeah.
I mean, in Woolworths and Coles, which are the two big supermarket chains here, very successful was a 4 cents per litre. I know it's gallons in America and probably in Canada, but here it's litres. So therefore it was a 4 cents. So if you spent $30 in Woolworths, you got 4 cents a litre off your petrol. And so therefore you would go to specific gas stations and you get 4 cents a litre off. Now that's a continuity program on steroids because why would you go elsewhere when you can get petrol cheap,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. And of course, for me, being in the thrust of, coming up with all this sort of stuff, it's just bemusing to me that a lot of big corporates don't use it because they go to an ad agency and they will get the bearded hipster with the ponytail will tell them that it's all about the brand. Okay. And I understand that. We buy Kellogg's because it's Kellogg's, we buy Toyota because it's Toyota. But it doesn't have to be that brand and direct response marketing are mutually exclusive. They should run together.
Yes.
Throughout the time that the Greater Building Society, we had Seinfeld doing the, free giveaway of the Happy Meal toy, but we're still building the brand at the same time. And I always say that, most advertising agencies will tell people, build the brand and then they'll taste your product. We get them to taste your product so that they fall in love with your brand. We flip it. we flip it. Because last time I looked, I didn't see the general manager of whatever company coming home and saying to the kids, "We got 280 likes today," and the kids are going, "Daddy, that's wonderful," sort of vanity metrics, but there's no food on the table.
John, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you making time to share your wisdom and experience and some of the most wild and creative examples that I've heard from marketing in a long time. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. All the best, mate.